Hey everyone, welcome to the June 28th bi-weekly SIG release meeting. My name is Jeremy. I'll be the host today. Just a quick reminder before we get started, this meeting is covered under the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, so please be mindful of the things that you say. This will also be recorded and available on YouTube. So if you're not comfortable being on camera or whatever, and you'd like to speak, feel free to DM me or just drop a message into the Zoom chat, and I'm happy to take your feedback or bring up your points. I've also dropped the agenda into the chat again. If you are attending the meeting, please add your name to the attendees list, just so we have a list of who is here. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. We'll start off just by opening the floor up for anybody that's never attended a SIG release meeting before to introduce themselves, say hello, say what you're interested in SIG release for. Nobody? All right. Aria says, hey, everyone in chat. Welcome. Okay, with that out of the way, do you want to unmute yourself and say hello or anything else? You good? Or we'll give you a chance to do that if you'd like to. Okay. Well, welcome anyway to the meeting. Happy to have you here. Hope to see you again at future meetings too. Okay, we'll jump down to sub-project updates next. First up, we'll do release engineering. Adolfo, do you want to give any updates for release engineering?
Well, I was out last week, and there are a couple of things that are interesting. So the first one is we were allowed to get a new release of BOM, our Kubernetes Bill of Materials tool, but it had a pretty nasty regression due to a code change upstream, and it has been fixed now, and so we should be able to cut one really soon. Should be version 0.40. Which comes with a number of features, which include JSON output and a new mini querying language into the bill of materials to extract the information from them. The other interesting one is that I had a chance to meet with some of the SPDX maintainers during Open Source Summit, and one of the things that came up was that they are reshifting the maintainers of the official SPDX libraries in Go. SPDX is a language to the specification to generate the SBOMs, bill of materials, from the Linux Foundation, and so the Go implementation of the libraries will be. I was asked to go and help be a part of the new maintainers there, and so if anyone is interested in collaborating in that project, please let me know. And there's lots to do there because there will be a major refactor of the libraries to better support the different versions of the spec. So there's lots of work to do. It's not related to SIG release, but just still wanted to drop it here. And so as I said, I was done. So this is all from me.
All right. I see Veronica has joined. Any other release engineering updates you'd like to share?
I don't know what Adolfo shared, sorry, but I guess that is it. And other than that, Jeremy is cutting the alpha release, the alpha 2 release today.
So exciting.
Yay. And we will be there in case you need anything. But other than that, I don't have anything else. I'm sure that everything was covered.
Awesome, thanks.
That's alpha 2 of Kubernetes 125, right?
Correct.
Cool.
Getting the notes correct, thanks. All right, any questions about the release engineering subproject?
Yeah, I just have a small one, Jeremy. Adolfo, could I reconnect with you sometime during this week whenever you're free, just to ask a few questions about that CI signal piece of work I was going to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sync on the channel and schedule sometime.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. Thank you.
Awesome. Anything else? All right, let's move on to release team updates. Cece, do you want to take that?
Sure. We had the enhancement phase last Thursday, and it went super well. And so far, we only received one exception request, and we have approved that, and it's already merged. So currently, I believe we have 56 enhancement tracked out of 76 enhancement opt-in, and that should be good for this release cycle. And yeah, that's it. We're looking forward to today's Alpha 2 card as well, and the release notes team are ready for that. Yeah, thanks for taking care of that.
Sorry, I was muted. Any questions for the release team? Awesome. Thanks for everything so far. I think enhancements free seemed like it went pretty well. Didn't see a lot of folks complaining or any big catastrophes to deal with. So thanks for making sure everything's going smoothly. Okay, next up, we'll jump into open discussion items. And the first one on there is Joseph. The floor is yours.
Sure. I was just bringing back up a discussion that we had in regards to our meeting times and cadence. Currently, we've kind of had two separate meetings, SIG release, which is where we're in currently, and then release engineering. I think a lot of us conflate them, or we end up kind of discussing items at both of them just because of timing. And so I think this proposal was thrown out after a discussion about, potentially aligning these meetings. So one, we could get broader reach with our Asia Pac EU, and as well as like making another meeting that is probably more friendly to more of the North America, that kind of time zones, as well as maybe even potentially even the far Pacific. So I was just kind of following up because it was up for discussion and kind of wanted to see, like what is next with this issue, since it's been kind of sitting there for about a month now.
Yeah, I don't think we got a lot of feedback on the, hold on, I gotta make sure that I don't get a bunch of messages here. Sharing my screen. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Yeah, so I don't think we got a lot of feedback on the issue in GitHub. So I think we need to broadcast it more widely. And to do that, I started crafting an email in HackMD, and I'll drop the links into the chat so folks can feel free to edit, just make suggestions if you'd like to. And included with that, I made 2 doodle polls, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to look at those times. I just took a stab at like picking some times on the same day, Tuesday, just to kind of keep that consistency, but things that were shifted a little bit more friendly for folks in Europe and things that were shifted a little bit better for folks in the US. So for the APAC/EU kind of centric times, these are all in GMT +2, so Berlin time. 12, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If anybody is in Europe on the call right now, are there times that would be better? Yeah, I see James and I see Rob. Anybody else? Are there times that would be better for folks? Obviously, this was just like I looked at the times and did some math and thought like this is a kind of a block in the middle of the day. Maybe it'll work. Happy to add or remove any suggested times here before we send the doodle out.
The only note I'd say is to remember the people south of the equator as well, because they're in the same time zones too. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking of Rian, shouting out for Rian in South Africa there.
Yeah, for South Africa, this is not a bad time, but also if the New Zealand and Australia crews want to look, and this is a little early because it's like 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if for Europe time, I think this is pretty good, but for New Zealand, this is not a good time.
It is super difficult to find time zones that cover everybody. And so there will be 2, and we could try to shift this one so it would be better for New Zealand folks. We can also try to shift the US time so that it's a little bit better for folks in New Zealand or Australia in those time zones? Just a couple messages in chat. Let me.
Or maybe we should deploy the single time zone flat Earth thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going about, isn't there? Yeah.
Okay.
Rian, I think I missed your comments for my notes. Sorry, can you repeat?
I think his comments were that this time works for South Africa, probably doesn't work as well for folks in New Zealand and the time zones that are around that. And we should fix this by creating a flat Earth and having one time zone. James or Joseph, go ahead.
Sure. I guess the one call that I was going to ask is for the release leads specifically. You have your schedules, you have your things you have to take care of. So that was one of the questions I did was kind of was thinking about when he's looking at these times was, how does this work for the team as well? And that was one thing when I was the past emeritus advisor in trying to recruit into zones that like New Zealand, these areas, like it's challenging. But was this part of some of the decision making in regards to times proposed? Is that something that we have to kind of be mindful of? Because that's the other thing is just there's only so many people who can run the meeting, as well.
Yeah, that's also true. I think Sasha is on. I don't know if Carlos is on. Sasha, would these times be okay for you, or are there better options that would work better for you?
Hey, in general, those times are pretty free from my perspective because most of my meetings are already aligned to US time zones. So that's the biggest thing, right? So I'd be happy to have more meetings and EU friendly times as well.
Okay. So I'll send this out later. And I can add times to it as it goes on if we need to make any changes. And then corresponding to that one, I picked some times in the US. Same deal, kind of aligned with these are mountain times because I forgot to change it to Pacific time when I made it. So shift them an hour, I guess. So 8 Pacific, 9 Pacific, 10 Pacific. Can I edit this now and just do that? Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Okay, 8 Pacific, 9 Pacific, 10 Pacific, 11 Pacific, 12 Pacific. These mostly work for me. So I just tried to pick a block in the day that was mostly free for me. Adolfo, I don't know how these work for you or for Stephen. Kind of aligned with what we're doing now, but I think there's also some overlap here with other open source meetings, like in the OpenSSF, similar things. So maybe we need to deconflict that a little bit.
Yeah, so the problem is that usually the times where Europe and the Americas overlap are like pretty competitive to find a meeting. So it's gonna be any time we move it, it's gonna clash with something. So I guess it will be vote of majority too. Yeah.
Any comments or feedback on these dates from anybody else? Floor is open for anybody that wants to suggest alternatives or things that are definitely not good. Okay, so I have the SAC-MD. I will send this to SIG release and KDev just for broad reach, along with the doodles, and we'll see what kind of feedback we get from that. I think one important thing to discuss around this is how do we determine if this is successful or not? How long do we want to try this out before we revert or go back? If anybody has any thoughts on that, I think adding it to the discussion item that we have going already would be super useful. I think it's in the docs from a couple of weeks ago. Actually, Joseph put it in the docs today. Thanks. yeah, so I guess call to action, go add your feedback to this issue, and we can kind of figure out what the best next steps are after we gather some feedback on times. Anybody else have any thoughts or concerns or questions, feedback about this topic? All right. If you have anything after the fact, feel free to reach out on Slack or on the GitHub issue. It'd be awesome too. Next up, we have a question about becoming release manager associates. Priyanka, is that you?
Yeah, so
okay.
that one is from me. I just wanted to understand, like, if there is a process to show interest. I have been reading the documents that are already there in the SIG release repository, and whatever are the requirements, and there is specifically something I read there that show your interest. So I'm just trying to understand, like, what is the way, right way? Is there some areas where I need to contribute? I'm open to understanding them and contribute back. Yeah. So yeah, that's all overall that is about.
I think Adolfo can respond this.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to it. So right now we're thinking about better codifying the process on how folks become release manager and release manager associates. Until now, the process had been, well, somewhat discretional in the sense that some of the leads would hear from people who had interest, like you're expressing now, and try to offer those people an opportunity to become part of the release managing team. But the problem is that the process hasn't been like really established and is not written like anywhere. And the idea so this has led to some problems. For example, right now, if you see the release manager associates who are listed on the site, they are a lot of names in there are not active, and so this being mostly a trust problem, we had expected some of those people to offboard themselves if they weren't able to continue in their release managing duties. So right now we are going through some discussions on how to make the process better and more open, to actually define the on-ramp from being a contributor, not necessarily even a release team member, and like provide a soft on-ramp so that people can start getting more involved and active in the as part of the release managers team. Some of the so there are some challenges because becoming a release manager is effectively getting like sensitive access to some of the Kubernetes repositories. So we need to establish some sort of process which is vetting for trust, but at the same time not gatekeeping and also not king-making, as in the sense of picking someone by a bunch of people who do it in the dark. So we're trying to like define the process in the open and to accept new people onto the role. So as I said before, some of the problems that discussed was that when the time came to pick a release manager for 125, the active candidates like Veronica are people who have been really overworked. So Veronica, this is her second term. I think it's back-to-back for a release.
No, it is my third, but I had one. I didn't participate in 124, but
yeah, and I've also done 2. Navrun, I think that has been also like, so it's the same people all over, and it doesn't match with the expectation that you see a list of folks in the list. You would guess that there's lots of help, but in reality there's not. So we need to make sure that people can come on and off that list, but with the appropriate checks and trust that need to be bestowed upon them. So I hope that we can start working on a draft for those processes in the upcoming weeks. But we will share them like as soon as we start doing that.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you, Adolfo. That answers it.
Joseph?
So I think that's good. I know we've talked about this in the past, and I'm glad we're kind of raising this and finding out. The one thing I always think about too as well is just kind of like, how do we do this in a way that is not a cognitive burden? Because like there's, like we have Veronica here, she stepped in, but there was some challenges with getting somebody to be a release manager. You all have roles that you're doing, outside of SIG release, but and we're trying to onboard people. Will this, as you kind of go in and kind of codify this, is there going to be thought to how to do this in a way that, ideally, you can do this training that can be repeated, or like some framework where that, it doesn't mean that I got to have somebody always having to onboard each and every individual, like there's some efficiency. So has any thought been given to how we could do that?
On the training part?
Yeah.
It's most likely it's going to be in improving the branch manager shadowing program, and especially so for example, I was discussing, I met Steven at some point, and we were discussing, so at what point do people, so do we want to allow, for example, folks from not just from the release team into the branch managing program or not? But if we allow all sorts of contributors, should they get up training before that or not? So the idea is that we have to recognize that it's a process to get there, and people need to learn lots of things before you can hand them the keys to the car and allow them to drive. And so we need to establish a process of where the SIG release community can basically say, oh, it's okay to allow this person to start driving. We as a community feel that this individual is now fit for the role, and let them. So this has to be like really, really well thought out, and then put into some process document and to start discussion around it.
Aside from the formal processes, what I have noted, at least for the past 6 months, let's say, this is my experience, is that for being a branch manager, specifically for specific Kubernetes releases, but also for being a general release manager or release manager associate, is that sometimes you have to, like, people from all across the release team are spread out in different time zones. So there are tasks that require collaboration with people in different time zones, which is normal in tech. But I think that I have been able to pinpoint it to, like, since it is a volunteer-based task in most of our cases, and sometimes waiting for another person in another time zone that requires to do something else, or that, I don't know, that has been my experience in many different tasks. And you have to at least be able to communicate that you're going to follow up at a certain time, or that you're not going to be able to follow up at a certain time, and like arrange with someone else to follow up. It's a lot of things like that is, in my opinion, not that much in the technical part, because you're supposed to already have proven that at some point. But in the day-to-day task, the difficulty that I have found is that, I mean, the difficulty of the role, not for me personally or for anyone specifically, but that sometimes like a task has to be specifically handed off or taken by yourself, but then you have to have that availability in weird times, you know. So it's not like there are not tasks that can be sometimes completed like in 2 hours, or there are many variables because some things are still in development, fortunately or unfortunately. So I don't want to judge it. I'm just saying that it is what it is right now, and that can be a complication of the role in any of the degrees, you know, and from associate to normal release manager or branch manager. And that's it. And I have been thinking about now that we have the shadow program, I don't know if that you can even communicate that, you know, in a manual, and to say like, you are expected to work in weird hours. It seems like, I think that comes with I don't know, assuming the role, and it's not that you have to, but at least you have to coordinate, and that becomes tricky when you feel like you're pushing people, and it's not pushing people, yes, but it's about other skills that are not technical.
It's not what it is. No, it's it's one of the things that we need in order to know not to expect people to overwork, is that we need more helping hands, because we need to better cover the world and have basically always an option of people to hand things over, except instead of always the same person and putting the burden on that particular individual.
Well, I have to drop.
Sorry, go ahead. Bye, Veronica. This is a super great topic. I'm happy we had this discussion. I look forward to having more about this. We have only a few minutes left.
I had a thing to add, a very small thing for Adolfo. As I've mentioned in the past, I'm trying to change how the release team is selected as well. I have a KEP in progress for that when I have any spare time in my life at all to write it, and I am still working on it. Which of course follows many of the same themes. It's like, how do you select a team that you can trust? So those two processes don't necessarily need to be the same or aligned, but they should probably be aware of each other. So when I have something, I'll share it with you, and I'd love to read your document when you have it as well, just FYI.
Okay. Just in the interest of time, if folks have other comments or questions about that, let's start a thread in SIG release on Slack, and we can take it from there. So next up, we have moving file signing forward. Matthias, do you want to take the floor?
Yeah, thanks. Basically, what I noticed is that the file signing is one of the things that is on the roadmap for next release. And I'm curious, with the pull request that I created now and the implementation of file signing in the release SDK, if there can be some more eyes that can check if the API setup is what we need for it to be able to be used probably in KREL. And if not, some input on what I need to change. I am very happy with the review already got from Sasha. There are some points that I will adjust that you already mentioned. But if there are more eyes that can check if it fits in with the idea of how it should be used in other places, then I'm happy to address that.
Yeah, I can take a look. I haven't been able to look at many PRs this week, but I will take a look. One thing to note about file signing and why I have purposely left that on up to the last minute of the signing effort is there's still a disconnect between how container images are signed keylessly and the verification that can happen to on them, and the way files are signed. So there is currently an effort going on of a project called SGET within Sigstore. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And so SGET it's basically the equivalent of, say, curl. When you curl a file from a URL, SGET will do the same for you, pull the file down and ensure that it has been signed, but not only signed, but signed by the person that's supposed to sign that URL. So there's some overarching work to make that happen, which is, I haven't checked in with them lately, but the idea is to basically delve the entire internet to delegate the trust and find out who's entitled to sign which URL. They were doing quite some progress recently, so if they manage to get it working soonish, maybe it's something we should look into. But needless, separate from that, having the signing API working is gonna do a lot of good, and we're gonna use it in a lot of places as well.
Yeah, currently the implementation that I have is based on a known public and private key. But I don't know if that is the way that it currently works, or that we are already with the container signing, are we already doing it keyless? Or
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, then I understand the disconnect. Is there a known key currently that could be used for file signing, or?
No, that's one of the problems with the RPMs and devs, that key management is, well, a touchy subject. So we need to get that organized before we do it. But if we can do something like keyless signing for the files, it would be a great thing to have. But I'll take a look at the PR and we can discuss the conversation later.
Yeah, I also booked myself on Sigstore to see what they are doing and figure it out. But thanks for the review then. Then we'll find a way. That's good.
Thank you.
All right. We've got about 10 minutes left. Probably enough time to start, but not finish the next conversation. So let's just start it, and we can see what follow-ups are needed after that. Arnaud, the great GPG debate.
Hi, I'm sorry. I just want to ask if I can use the slot of the next release engineering meeting next week to talk about this, because I think Stephen requests we have a separate and dedicated conversation about how the signature mechanisms for system packages. So before we shift and merge meetings, can we use basically the next slot? I think it's July 6th. Next week to talk about this.
It is July 5th, and let's see if there's anything on the agenda that we would need to bump.
And I checked the agenda 5 minutes ago. It was empty.
I think it's a worthwhile time. Like we asked to have a follow-up separate meeting for that. I think it's hard to find times. There's nothing on the agenda now, so I would be +1 to using that time slot for that.
Okay, thank you.
Sasha says +1 in the chat too.
So one thing that would be great, I know, is just put the subject on the agenda and try to elaborate as much as you can so that we can come prepared to with as many ideas as we can.
Any pre-reading would be useful too.
Exactly. I would drop issue, comments, and everything related to that subject.
Nice. Thanks.
All right. I was wrong. That didn't take more than 10 minutes. Perfect. Okay. So with that being said, if anybody has any other quick items, you can use the next 4 minutes to discuss them, or we can just end now and give everybody back a couple minutes. before their next meetings, or let them go off into the afternoon or evening. Arnaud has a hand up.
Yeah, I don't know if we can talk about this in 5 minutes. So basically, I think last GitInfra meeting, we were talking about doing the migration from GCR, which is container registry, to artifact registry. So at some point, we need to have some conversation about this, because Ben talked to the GCR team, and if we want to basically shift traffic to help reduce the cost, we might need to basically migrate the container image to artifact registry. That's the heads up. Conversation is still happening, so.
Awesome. That's another good follow-up conversation to have, I think.
Yeah, I have one question related to that work as well. So who owns the Kate's artifacts project, and who do I go to talk about changes in that project, Google Cloud project?
GitInfra own that, but I think it's really, really early to work on this, because we need to have a full agreement about how we modify the image promotion process.
Okay.
So there's gonna be something we need to change during the promotion process that was not done, that is not done with GCR. So before we even talk about set up container artifact registry repository, we need to have a conversation with release engineering about what's the real impact on the image promotion process.
So from what I remember, I don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, artifact registry should be API compatible with GCR, right?
Yeah, and both are OCI compliant. The problem is how both services handle the image blob, simply because basically GCR do replication between continental repository. Artifact registry is not handling that. So we need to be able to, for each image promotion, do the replication between multiple artifact registries.
Okay, sounds good.
That's one problem we need to talk about, and there are also other problems related to permission and stuff like that. So I feel like I don't want to push and rush about this, so I kind of want to have a proper conversation about this with you, Stephen, Sasha, release engineering.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, take a look. Well, the promoter already does replication of blobs. I did that for the signature, so it's simply a matter of maybe moving that code back in the process. But yeah, we can take it up. And I think I saw an issue or comment from Ben somewhere. I'll take a deep dive into
Yeah.
All right. I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. If anybody has any other topics, feel free to add them to the next agenda, or come to SIG release on Slack, and we can take it from there. This was an awesome meeting. Thanks to everybody for attending. Hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday, and see you on the internet.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, cheers.
Bye, everyone.